There's a story, I don't know who wrote the story, it's a little short story, and to synopsize the story, it's an author who lived in Paris but had a disaffinity for the Eiffel Tower. He thought it was distasteful in such a subtle, lovely place that somebody put up something that looked like something American. Uh, a big tower right in the middle of it that was so much higher than everything else. Because there were, of course, no skyscrapers at the time. And he really hated the Eiffel Tower. And somebody, a columnist or a journalist or somebody asked him why, if you hate this Eiffel Tower so much, do you eat lunch on that third floor restaurant that you take the elevator up to see the Eiffel Tower? Because the guy ate lunch there every day. Every day he ate lunch in the Eiffel Tower. And so he said, how come you eat lunch there? Because if you hate it. He said, it's the only place in Paris that I don't have to look at the Eiffel Tower. I didn't make up that story. I think it was Guy de Maupassant. I'm not sure, but I think that's who it was, who said that, who that was about. And that's very much our situation. We're in the only place in the creation that we can't see ourselves. We've found a way to be in the only place in creation where we don't have to be aware of ourselves. Other people are aware of us. If we have a nervous habit, people know that about us. People know something about our appearance. People know something about our personal style. What makes us lose our temper, what makes us, etc., what our likes and dislikes are, what our fanaticisms are. People know that from around us. All the viewers of that Eiffel Tower know that. But we don't know that. When somebody makes an observation about us that's so obvious to everyone else, we say, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's me. No, I think you got it off. You must be talking about somebody else. But we're not talking about somebody else. We don't have that awareness. Animals have awareness of danger and food sources and a few other things that help sustain their lives. That's their lot. They have that acute capacity to have super heightened awareness. And we do also. Not so much from danger, because danger isn't our lot. We can drink at the water hole without having to look around. We don't have anything like this. When we go out, we don't have to be aware of things like the gazelle does in Africa. So what is our gift of awareness? Our gift of awareness is based in the non-necessity. We can see and feel and appreciate what's around us and how it all fits together. We have the gift of that potential heightened awareness. But we don't use it. It's not part of the equipment that we value, that we have that gift. To the same extent that the ears of that gazelle are so sensitive that it can feel the stirring of the crocodile in the water, and so on and so on and so on. That hawk, that vulture, sense of smell is so heightened, so sensitive, that it can spot carrion 6 inches, covered with 6 inches of leaves in the forest. We have that sensitivity, but it's not for those things. We have that awareness, but it's not for those things. We have that awareness not for our senses, because our senses are not that aware. They are sufficient, but they're not that aware as the animals. But we have the capacity to be aware of our surroundings, everything around us, and ourselves, and how it all fits together, and have the appreciation of how it all fits together. And it escapes us that there's an importance to that there's a naturalness to that. So more we function as the animals do. more our awarenesses come to our food, clothing, and shelter. We're very aware if there's a sale at the store. We're very aware if our refrigerator is missing some element or other. We're very aware if somebody knocks at the door, not with a gun or any kind of danger, but someone we may not be sure who they are. We're very aware of those things, but we're not aware of the subtlety of our existence in relation to the whole. And we have the gift of that capacity. It's not so much that this capacity, this natural capacity, is a perk on life and it makes life richer to us. But if we are without it, we're as deficient as an animal without that sense of smell and hearing. We can't really survive as a rich human being, as a deep human being, without those natural capacities because they are ours. And if we don't let them come forth with us, the rest of our life is some distortion. Some replacement of that capacity with possessions, with dependence on connections, with dependence on material things, with problems, plans, and relationships. Our lives are substituted with those things because we are without the awareness of our unity, of the harmony of it, of our personal existence and its uniqueness. And not being aware of it, we can't appreciate it. We only can see externally what's right and what's wrong, what we like and what we don't like, what we want and what we don't want. And we try to fend off the don't like, don't want, and we try to encourage the like and want. And that desperate grasping for like and want makes us very different than the natural human beings that we could be. The human being that has awareness of not so much right and wrong and like and don't like, but the appreciation for the existence as it is, how it fits together, how life and death are not so far apart. How good health and bad health are not that far apart. How good fortune and bad fortune are not that far apart. We lose the naturalness of that experience, of that awareness, and our lives become something else. And they have become something else for so long, and with such agreement with our peers who have also become something else, that the whole contest has become a parallel contest to the actuality of life. The removing of the obstacles to seeing things as they are, to being as we are, to the awareness of what is, replaced by this whole parallel existence, which has its goods and its bads and its ups and its downs and its details of discussion, which we can go on with ad nauseum, dealing with them as they're real. But they're not. We made them all up as a parallel substitute for the actual existence, the awareness and the appreciation of what is, with our natural capacity to have that heightened awareness. which is not a drug-induced state. It's our natural state. It's not the state of the animals. It's our state. It's our capacity. Now, how could we possibly return or discover that natural possibility when we're so immersed in that parallel existence, which has tremendous rewards according to it, tremendous ups and tremendous downs, tremendous goods and tremendous bads, tremendous wins and tremendous losses, has a whole story and books and books and books and movies and movies and movies and TV shows and TV shows and TV shows and discussions and discussions and discussions about this parallel existence. How could we possibly escape from it back into what is when it's so thickly enmeshed around us? It would seem impossible. Because it comes to a point where we have almost no doubt of the reality of that parallel existence that we've all worked to create together. So that we have terms like fresh air. Fresh air is when you go outside. What's the rest of the air? I really like this building. It has a lot of stale air in it. We have created such a complete package. And I'm accentuating this because I need to explain why we need a school. I need to explain why we need peers, why we need a support system, why we need someone who has a perspective other than the perspective of the reality, the absolute reality of that parallelly created existence. So I have to accentuate how compounded it is, how convoluted it is, how complete it is, that one need never go outside, like a building in a big city with a shopping mall attached, with all the restaurants and shops and advertising. You never have to go outside. What a wonderful convenience. And if you do, you can go underground. And we have another completeness built there. And that be attractive to a person. That we have physically built it. So that everything we have is agreed upon as this is now complete. You are now complete. And we'll put a church inside this thing so you can worship God. All the time, this original existence, this natural awareness and capacity to appreciate, getting further and further and further away, getting cloudier and cloudier and cloudier, getting to be more and more and more of a distant memory, so that eventually it has to be something like we are taking on something new. We need to gain awareness. We need to practice something new, rather than to remember what is, rather than to remove whatever obstacles have annexed themselves onto us to create this parallel world, to remove those obstacles and be reborn to what was always in the first place, the natural awareness of a human being. Now I know that certainly, you're in the bathroom, right? You had to go pretty bad, so you're sitting there and you look over and there's no toilet paper. It's not one of the big ups, not because there's no toilet paper, because there's toilet paper outside, but you don't want to shout, "Hey, can you pass me the toilet paper?" You don't want to do that. Or you're sitting at the table and you got all your food together and you forgot to bring a fork or chopsticks or your fingers or whatever. Or, well, your fingers you have. So you don't have your utensil, right? So you got to call back into somebody and they're, hey, would you bring me a fork? Right? Everybody would rather, quote, what? Do it themselves. Everybody wants to do it themselves. That's understandable. You want to be able to do it yourself. Most things, almost all things. If you could do it yourself, you'd do it yourself. You know, you pick up something and somebody says, oh, let me give you a hand with that. No, I can handle it. I can handle it. You'd rather do it yourself. Well, that's our capacity because we're given limbs and strength and ability to do things like that. So we would rather do it ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then it comes to, those of you who were in that, watched that slideshow last night, you saw where we built this walkway with these precast concrete blocks that were, 12 feet long? 12 feet long, a couple of feet wide, and about maybe 3 inches thick, and probably weighed, what? Okay, 500 pounds. Okay, so Ron, he likes to do everything by himself, probably more than most even, right? So here he is with the end of that thing, trying to lift it up. He can't even budge it. He knows there are some things that if he's going to do this, because he was the foreman of that particular job, he took on that responsibility, and he said, okay, how many people can I get? So, a few people raised their hand, and he said, no, we need more people. And I said, okay, let's just get everybody over there, and we'll lift these things. And it took everybody to lift those things. It took everybody, like 12 people, whatever it is, to lift those things. And it was obvious. I'd like to do it myself. I don't want to say, hey, bring me a fork. But some things come along that you're just not going to be able to do yourself. You're just not going to be able to. And the reality, the ability to recognize that this world of what is so obscured. It's obscured by clouds. It's obscured by more clouds. And it's obscured by so much of our life experience that we've created something that is not related to it and substitutes it so completely that we never, ever, ever, in going through our life, have to have any recognition at all that there's anything else but what has been created as this is the life quest. And there are people who never have a question the whole time, maybe on their last breath, but maybe not. Knowing the completeness of that parallel world, wouldn't you think that if somebody were going to rediscover what is, if somebody were going to rediscover that they would need help? That they would need all the help they could possibly get, more even than to pick up a 500-pound block of concrete. Anybody who would be willing to gain assistance, anybody would be embraced. Yes, 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 we need all the help we can get. But that's not really our idea. It's very alien to us to recognize the need for so much help because what we've taken on is basically very limited and all within this parallel cylinder. And in this parallel cylinder, unless you have some quest for power, as very few of the people sitting here do, you need multiple employees, you need to create a company and like that, then you recognize you need help. And you're going to pay people for help. You're going to pay them and pay them and pay them so you get all the help you need. You recognize that. But those of us that don't want to conquer, that don't feel the need to have an army at our disposal, we don't need much help at all. Maybe get somebody to help clean the house. Pay them $20 an hour. Sorry? $25 an hour. So you get your house cleaned every once in a while. But beyond that, Not much. But that's the situation in this parallel world. My job is to do two things: introduce you to another possibility, and also introduce you to the concept and help you prove to yourself that you have created a world which doesn't exist, only exists in your creation of it and the support of your peers to agree that it's there, to agree that that's what is, and that's what deserves attention. And your resistance to what I'm trying to do is you're asking me to help you sort it out in this world that you've existed. Well, I have this problem. What's the best way to handle it? I don't know. Well, I have this relationship. What's the best way to handle it? I don't know. You made it up. You made the whole thing up. Go to see somebody who studies the rules of this made-up game. And you'd have to ask that person. Because we have gotten together to make up all the rules of this game. It's all made up. It's all arbitrary. And if you're asking me to partake in the illusion of that it works out in here, then you're going to be disappointed, because my job is not that at all. My job is to introduce you to a possibility of an original existence, of awareness and appreciation, of actually the simplicity of our awareness, not the complexity, not the supernaturalness of it, not the altered state of it, but the naturalness of our capacity to be aware of our existence, the connection of it to everything else, to appreciate all that, and to slowly leave not this world behind because we wear clothes and we eat food, but the dependence on its reality, the monkey cage agitation of trying to sort it out and make it work out, to leave some of that behind slowly, slowly, not abruptly, because it is very entangled in our every thought and feeling, which makes it no more real, but it makes our situation and our challenge more real, that we have to be gentle and we have to take it slow and we have to take it easy. Because our concept of ourselves is not here. It's here. And we can't dismember this because that's our concept of ourselves. But we can slowly poke little holes with humor and perspective and tools that we learn to use to see that this may not be as complete as we imagined it to be. And as it becomes less solid and less complete to us, then something else, some light starts to shine through, just as if you would poke holes in anything with a light behind it. Something shines through that was always there. When the clouds part, the sun comes through. The sun was there, the clouds part. Slowly learn how to help the clouds, allow the clouds to part of this parallel world that we've created, and the light starts to shine through of what our natural capacity is. And this, as demonstrated by what you saw if you went to that slideshow and presentation last night. Delightfulness, helpfulness, lack of selfishness, willing to work together. Not saints or supernatural people. Not people who have a religious fervor or are ordered in any way to do that as a requirement, but the natural expression of a human life. To be supportive, to recognize that we're all in this together, to recognize the Burmese refugees aren't a cause, but they're part of us, to recognize the people that we live with and that are next to us are not someone we can be willing to help, but are people that are part of this human being that we are. Not that all those people that wore the red shirts last night and the ones that were too vain to wear them because they weren't the proper size. Not that those people are in a state where that oneness is so real to them, but to the state that a little bit, a few holes poked, a little reality coming in, just to that state, and everything is different. It's all different. We're willing to do what we weren't willing to do before. Not as a sacrifice, but an obvious recognition of human beings together. And not only in special occasions, not only halfway around the world, not only with a cause that can be found in the newspaper, but in a moment-to-moment recognition, slightly, little by little, seeing the light come through of some original world that was precious. That not because of our intention, but because of the pressure of what came before us and how we were introduced to this world and introduced and introduced and introduced to this world, and how we were indoctrinated, not by anyone's ill intentions, but because that's all they knew. And after generation and generation and lesson and conversation and conversation and example, capped in our generations by TV and movies and the acceleration of the reality of this, of technology being an answer to anything, of speed and more things being an answer to anything, only attempts to try to make this parallel world look more complete, look more absolute and sustainable. And that even introducing the possibility that within this parallel world we can be mellow, we can be vegetarian, we can be agrarian, meaning grow our own food, that we can be communitarian, but not recognizing that that's just another way to look at this parallel world, to say that we're going to have this parallel world with an alternative fuel source. The answer is, what's it called? What is that fuel called? Ethanol. Ethanol. That's the answer. Ethanol. And there are people who are for it, and there are people who are against it. And there are studies why it's a good idea, and studies why it's a bad idea, to try to improve this parallel world which we made up in the first place, and is only a substitute. Not that its accoutrements, its cars and its etc. aren't part of our lives, but the dependence on them, the questing for them, the desperateness of not having them, including the relationships and the problems and the plans and the successes and the failures, all agitatedly put together and obscured our natural possibility. This is a major challenge that we're taking on. Major challenge. And I really want to draw the picture. This is not an easy something. This is not a go to a seminar. This is not a go to a couple of classes, try a couple of tools, casually try this and that. This is trying to escape from a prison of concepts, premeditated structures, which we fall into and then think we're improving or altering. This is intense programming. This is like the deepest dream that you ever were in that you really wanted to get out of, and you were trying to get out of it and wake me up and wake me up, and you know that feeling of walking around in syrup, and the what it is for you is chasing you down the street, and your legs are going in the syrup. It's not going in the syrup, but you're going in the syrup. That's a lot. That's a lot. So that we get to play plenty. We get to play in Thailand. We get to play, if you saw that, all those places, and we get to play more places than that too. And we get to play building houses, and we get to play burning down houses, and we get to play all kinds of things, and growing plants, and eating, and going, all kinds of stuff, and all kinds of playing, but always with a focus. Always with a focus. The focus of what can this life event, how can this life event help me to rediscover what is, and to in some way re-examine what I've told is. And there's nothing, almost nothing, that we can't do in that context. And there's almost nothing that we don't do in that context. But the seriousness of what we take on should never be forgotten, because the idea isn't to come up with new adventurous ideas. That would be more the quest of having to win. How do you win in this parallel existence? But how to come up with circumstances that will help us in working together, in using the tools that we have and that we study, the points of view that we study, the dynamics that we study. How can those situations, living together, working apart, living apart, however, how can it help us to rediscover, not in theory, but in the moment, that there may be another life to live, and also to minutely discredit, minutely re-examine the components of this alternate world which has caused us to be so anxious about everything. Anxious because we suspect within us that we've created it. And we know that since we've created it, it has no permanence to it, because we've created it. And it doesn't allow us to relax, because we've created it. In order to relax, we have to be part of something that something else created, not us. The opposite of our concept of control. We have to re-examine this alternate world and see that it is not delivering what it promised, and that we undertake a quest for discovering something else. That is the purpose of this school. That is the only purpose of this school.